Well, my guest today, he brought the classic DC Comics character Connor Hawke to life in the Arrowverse. He can currently be seen on the CW sci-fi series 4400. A big welcome to Joseph David Jones. Joseph, welcome to Comic Book Central.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Getting to chat with a guy who suited up as Green Arrow almost on the Green Arrow's 80th anniversary. So I don't know if you knew that, but that's pretty cool.
I did not know that. No, they didn't tell me.
Do you feel 80?
Yeah.
Some days you feel 80, I would imagine.
I feel like I've aged like 50 years in, the past 2 years. So, yeah.
Well, there's two, because you're like jumping forward to 2046. You got like, you're all over the map. So like time doesn't even mean anything. So you could be 80, you could be 20, whatever. Look, we're going to talk about the Arrowverse. We're going to talk about everything. But the 4400, not the 4400, it's 4400, right?
It is 4400. That's been tripping me up this whole time too, because
if you say it wrong, the publicists are going to get on you, right?
No, they stop. I've been stopped so many times for like promos and stuff like that. I'd be like, tune in to the 4400, and they're like, no, 4400.
400. Yeah. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the show and the original, this is so like, why is that a difference? Why is there a difference? Because there was something before, right?
I think it's just because like whenever people revisit sort of a concept or whatever, or a series, there is confusion with like, is this a continuation of that series? Is this a reboot of that series with the same characters? Is this like a reimagining of the world? So like it's trying to pay homage to that world while distancing itself so that people understand that this is a new reimagining of the concept.
Yeah, this was a 2004, 2005 series, I think, right? On the USA Network, and like ran like 4 years, 44 episodes. That's kind of cool. 44. I don't know if there's anything to that, but how is this different than the previous one? Because I think one of the writers or one of the showrunners might have something to do with the new one, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody has something to do. Maybe it does, maybe I don't know. You tell me. Maybe you can't tell me. I don't know.
I know, right? I don't know if I can or can't, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do it.
Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching. Nobody.
The creator of the show is the original series. He is actually here to shoot this episode of this series. So there is like a very, and there might be some cameos coming in from the original series as well this season. So a little bit of stuff to tease, but there are some connections both creatively and in the narrative that tie into the original series. So that would be cool.
Okay, because this is like a sci-fi series. I'm like thinking like maybe like Quantum Leap meets X-Files meets Twilight Zone. It's like all kind of good sci-fi mixed together, right? It's like these people. Yeah. What's the concept? Like people like from the past were like taken by something and now they're plopped back, and like where did they go? They didn't age. Like what's the deal? What's the deal on 4400?
The 4400. So basically, the concept is that 4400 people who were either overlooked, undervalued, otherwise marginalized in their own time periods are all like taken from their time periods in the blink of an eye and reappear in modern day Detroit, like smack dab in the middle of like the, I guess, Belle Isles in Detroit. Now these people are sort of scrambling to figure out what's happened to them. The government is rushing to uncover like what's happened to them, why have they appeared, whether they're a threat, and I guess everything is like sort of building to this climactic reveal of what happened to these people and why they're now in the present.
Now, the original series ended on a cliffhanger, if I'm not mistaken. And then it was that like the whole thing, because I always get ticked off like shows like Alf. Like I love the show Alf. I don't even know if you remember. You're probably too young to remember. It's like, it's an alien puppet. But like it ended on a cliffhanger. Like the government came and got Alf, and like it ended. We did like the movie, but it wasn't. But like that happened all the time back in the day. Like shows would end, and then they're like, we'll move on. So is there? I know you can't say anything.
Yeah.
But is there at least the hope that maybe the fans
will have closure?
Yes.
It's funny because, like, I mean, I'm hoping that'll happen too, because I watched the original series when I was a kid, and I was in love with it, and we never did get that like final episode or that closure and what happened to this world that they had built. So I don't know.
That's good. That's all. That's good. I want you to get in trouble. I don't want you to get in trouble.
Okay.
That's good. That's good. We'll leave it at that. There's the least of hope for fans. What can you tell us about your character? Is it Jarrell Mateo?
Yeah. So I play Jarrell Mateo. He is a social worker that the government is tasked to sort of figure out what has happened with these people, why they're here, and what their intent is. But he's also there to sort of help them reacclimate to society, because a lot of these people came from extremely far back. A lot of these people have no idea how to, I guess, reintegrate themselves into this modern world. And then there are also people who didn't come from that far back, who are just trying to find loved ones and like reconnect with them, piece together what semblance of a life that they can in the modern day.
I can just imagine like somebody like from back in the day, and then like, I mean, you know, like what's a cell phone, or like, what's the internet, you know, like things that we just take for granted. And it's like, you got to go back and explain all that stuff. That must be pretty cool. What research did you do as a social worker? Like, did you do some preps for that? Did you do some homework?
Yeah. It's funny, I spent a good amount of time working and talking with social workers before I came into this role, just to sort of, I don't know, understand the weight of the job. Like, especially people working with families and with immigration, which is like initially what Jarrell did. You don't know. I mean, you're working with these people for years to try and help them gain immigration status, or they're seeking asylum, or I guess trying to gain citizenship. It's a long journey, a lot of work, and things may just shift and not go their way, and families could be separated. People who have nothing left back home, like they could be forced to go back there where there's nothing for them. And it is something that takes its toll on the people working with these families and like trying their best to get a favorable outcome for them. And I wanted to understand that, as well as, because I'm partnered with a correctional officer, what it was like for, I guess, them to work with police officers in cases of like trying to de-escalate situations that may or may not be violent situations, to keep them from going to a place where, you know, people can really get hurt, or really, you know, yeah. So it was understanding de-escalation as a social worker tasked with like working with an officer, and then understanding the weight of it.
So this is 6 episodes, season 1. You're gonna cliffhanger. We're probably cliffhanger, right? But
it's always a cliffhanger.
Season right 2, but you get like, do we have a guarantee? Is there any news on season 2?
I don't know. I mean, it really depends on the.
Don't do this to us again.
I know. Right now we're slated to do 13, so we're shooting episode 12 right now.
Okay. So 13. So 13 episode season.
13
season 1.
Season.
Got it. Okay. So that's, I mean, even like you think of something like Arrow, that's like, that seems to be like the norm now, like these 10 episode seasons or 6 episodes or like 13 or whatever it is. That's completely different. Do you like this like sort of compressed storytelling format now? I mean, it seems like you got to flip over cards like all the time.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like, I don't know, it's a manageable amount of work that goes into it. These 22 episode seasons, that's like, I want to say 9 months out of the year. So it's just like, oh man, this completely encompasses your life. And I feel like with Arrow, they weren't only doing that, they were doing, you know, crossover episodes, helping like start up other spinoffs that were going in the Arrowverse. Like the amount of work that Stephen Amell put into, like, I guess, being patriarch of that universe is insane. Like, it's insane to think about. And even going on to this show and the amount of work we're putting on into just these like 13 episodes, it's like, man, 22 episodes, it is a lot to tackle.
I would have been there. cast members from the Arrowverse I've talked to, they're always like talking about how they'd steal naps like wherever they could. Like you'd always like find them off in a corner sleeping somewhere because they're working
Yes.
these insane shifts, 16, 17-hour days. So that's
It's
got to be
funny
crazy.
because we're still doing that.
All right.
It's a different show. Like luckily I don't have to do that and then fight and have a fight scene. But
can you imagine that? That would be
I can't imagine that I did it.
Maybe. Well, I mean, you're still, I mean, nobody dies in the Arrowverse, and nobody, like, all the timelines are always there. And like, well, we'll talk about that. But growing up, were you, and like, did you groove on this nerd stuff? Like, did you groove on comic book stuff and pop culture and sci-fi? Like, what were you digging growing up?
Yeah. It's funny. I watched a lot of comic book stuff. Obviously, like Batman was the man to be. I never saw anything that was like the Arrow, or I guess like, yeah, Oliver Queen or Connor Hawke. But I watched.
When you say Batman, who was your Batman? Because you're young, you're a kid. So who was your I know who my Batman was. My Batman was Adam West. That's not you. You say Batman, I'm thinking you're probably like Christian Bale, right? Or something.
It was Christian Bale, although I was not too young to like not remember George Clooney Batman. I still remember bat nipples.
Oh,
I will never.
Were you a fan of them or not? Were you
fan of bat nipples? That's the one thing that I felt like Christopher Nolan's Batman was missing. It was just like gratuitous suit-up scenes with bat nipples and bat butts.
That I remember seeing that, and it's like, well, I go back because my Batman was Adam West. It was right before my time. I saw him in syndication too, but it was always like the George Clooney version seemed like a throwback to that, the camp, like they sort of brought the camp back. So I kind of agree. That's the cool thing about Batman, though, is that there's so many different Batmen or versions of Batman. You can pick your favorite. Like you've got a favorite, right? Like Batwing. Wasn't Batwing like your?
Oh my God, man! That's my dream character to play. Honestly, I would love to bring that to the big screen.
Okay, small screen it's taken care of, right?
Yeah. Man, a buddy of my cameras, he plays him on Batwoman, and he's
so you know each other.
Yeah.
What do you like text him and like, oh man, I want to be Batwing.
And I mean, he knows, and like he writes comic books and stuff like that too. So he's been like adding a lot to the cinematic universe for his character. But we have we shot at the same time up in Vancouver, and we have the same birthday.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like we're very, very similar, both in our love for comic books and just like, I don't know how we interact and love this universe. So like,
he'd fight you though for that character if it goes to.
He probably would fight me for that character.
Yeah. Now, who's got the better skills? Because you trained under Stephen Amell. You've got some Stephen Amell chops in you.
Here's the thing. He started out as a tech guy. I was always there shooting arrows, hitting people with those Kimpo sticks and kicking ass and taking names. So you might have to watch out unless you got some gadgets or something.
Okay, you led me into this here. Your degree in mechanical engineering?
Yeah. Oh no, I don't have a degree.
You were going for a degree.
Yeah. I initially
where does that come from? Like where does that love come from? And then how did it transition into what, modeling and acting?
That's hilarious. It does seem like an incredibly big leap. I was in school. I was a massive nerd growing up. But I was.
It's a safe space. This is a safe place.
Oh, I know, safe place. I had a full ride scholarship for engineering at the University of Kentucky when I was growing up, and I didn't know what I wanted to be, basically, but I had always done well in math and science, and like I took a career aptitude test, and it was like, you're best suited for a career in engineering. So like I was just on the trajectory to do that because I took a test and it said like that's what you're best at. But I was like, the more I did it, the more I was like, this isn't fulfilling at all. And then I don't know, there were exciting jobs within engineering, but most of my friends were just like working for Toyota or something to make sure car doors fit when they got to the manufacturer. Like it was just like nothing against, Toyota engineers.
No, we want our Toyotas to be safe, but
I know. You gotta have it.
Right. But if a guy doesn't want to be that guy, then I don't want him.
Yeah. So I at the time I had been trying to find representation for my band. Like I had a band in college and we've been playing like, local gigs and stuff like that. So I went to a talent agency to see if they rep like musical acts and everything. It's funny because it's coming full circle now because I'm working on an album while I'm shooting this show. So
you got an EP coming out too, right?
Yeah. So it's all full circle. But talent agency was like, we do not rep musical acts or anything, but you look like you could be a model. Would you be interested? And I was like, they're like, would you be interested in potentially like going and doing some modeling gigs? Like,
it sounds like a line though, doesn't it? It sounds like, like, hey, do you ever think about modeling? And you're like, oh, sure, from Kentucky.
Yeah, right. That's exactly.
Go to the big city, kid.
I almost got swallowed up by the big city. But no. I went there, did really well in like the modeling gigs around there. They got me in acting classes. I like went and did a competition in New York for modeling and acting. It was called IMTA. I don't know if you know what this is or anything, but did not do well in modeling at IMTA and like ended up getting like male actor of the year while I was there. Yeah. So I was like,
what
man.
Does that mean you didn't do well in modeling? Like, you didn't wear the sweater right? You didn't hit the walk? What does that mean? Like,
I don't know.
You comb your hair that right.
The classifications for which determined like who won the competition or who didn't, like, I don't know. It was just like completely to the judge's discretion. But there was like, it was like, I want to say like editorial shoot. It was like America's Next Top Model, basically.
Okay. Just something subjective.
Like, photo competitions, like runway walking competitions, suit and like it was like all of those different things. And I was not the guy doing those things.
You didn't get the blue steel thing down, right? You needed to work on your blue steel.
They were just like, hey, like this guy's shoulders did not back far enough, like 10 points off, like that. It was like that kind of stuff.
Okay, so as far as acting, like, did you have inspirations? Did you have actors that you looked up to other than George Clooney and Batman? But did you have like some that you looked up to and you're like, I want to do that, or your inspirations?
Man, it's funny, there's so many. I would always watch movies with my dad and my brothers when we were growing up. And like, I always had this immense love for films and for cinema and everything. It was just like, I don't know, so far removed from what's in the realm of what you can do. It's like a foreign language, and like, how did you get there? Like, I don't know how those people got to those positions. But I was a huge fan of Will Smith. I was a huge fan of Denzel. I was a huge fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. And then like when I actually started acting and everything, there were so many more people whose like performances, like they sank into so well, I would not even recognize them enough to be like, oh, I'm a fan of this person. Like once I started noticing the craft and like the performances, like I fell in love with Daniel Day-Lewis, who would just like disappear into every role that he did. Fell in love with Gary Oldman. And there's so many other, I guess, character actors who can do that. They can just vanish into this character and there's nothing discernible about who they are within them. It's just like they completely embody them.
You got to work with Denzel. So how do you turn fanboy Joseph off? Or did you? I don't.
I didn't. That's the thing. I did not. And it's funny because like initially I had like gone to the table read for this role. It was like kind of weird and surreal because it was like, I don't know. It was like, why is my name here next to these people? So it was like Colin Farrell, Denzel Washington, me, and I'm like, why am I here? But anyway, I was like, man, I am going to say something charming and clever, and Denzel is going to be like, you know what? I should mentor this guy. Like, I see a charming, clever person right here, and I should help him on his path towards being like a great actor like me. And I had a thing that I was going to say, and he didn't come in, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I was like, all right, well, I'll just go get some coffee. And like I went to the like little crafty table that they had set up for the read to get some coffee, and he like tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, hey man, can I get up in here? And I froze. I was just like,
yeah.
Jojo. And he was like, what? I was like, no, that's my name. And you.
He didn't ask.
And it was the most painful moment ever, especially because I had prepped for that.
You had a monologue. Ready, and all you got out was JoJo.
Wow.
Does he know that? Like, have you met him since? Like, did you?
Yeah, I mean, on set, I didn't bring that up.
Okay.
Luckily, he did not remember, which also was kind of mortifying.
Yeah.
But we were working together, and like, I was just like, hey man, like, I don't know if you remember meeting me at the table read and everything. I didn't get to say what I was gonna say at the time. And he was like, oh no, you at the table read? And I was like, ugh.
Oh no, that's even worse.
He's like, oh, I'm sorry, brother.
He's Denzel though. He's probably got to turn all that off. Like, he probably just, if he doesn't, he's just gonna get bombarded by people coming. Yeah.
And the thing was, like, I mean, we're reading, we're next to each other, but like after this table read, he went and talked to the writer, I guess the writer director, and like a handful of the producers, and was just like mining the material for like multiple. He was taking pages of notes while we were doing the table read. So I was like, yo, he's in the zone. But after that, like, we had a really, really great conversation. He talked about his son. He talked about like sports and everything, and like his whole team that he had around him who had been with him for years and years. So it was like,
so you got the moment.
I got the moment. I didn't prep anything that day.
Best piece of acting advice you've ever gotten, and who's it from?
I don't know. Man, it's funny because like every time I get asked these questions, I've gotten asked it a couple of times, but like, it's like I cannot think of it, like a deer in the headlights, trying to remember all of the different advice that I got.
Don't wear a superhero suit with nipples. Yeah, you can have that one for free. Yeah. You can have that one for free.
I guess like what's sticking out of my head is the most recent advice that I got. I don't even know who it came from, but it was don't compare your journey or your trajectory to anybody else's, because it's only going to torture you. Everybody has their own journey to the top, or where they're supposed to be and everything. And playing the comparison game is just, I don't know, going to make you jaded, and it's going to hurt you more, basically.
It's good advice. Let's talk about the journey of Connor Hawke. Started off on Legends of Tomorrow. Okay, how did you get involved in the Arrowverse? Did you know about it? Were you aware of it? Like, you're grooving on Batman and stuff, so we know that. So we know you're a superhero fan, but like, how'd you get involved in the Arrowverse?
It's funny. I had just come off of, I think, Allegiant. They just got finished shooting that movie, and I was just doing a lot of generals, which is basically like they send you in there to meet with like the heads of casting, or to meet with like different casting directors for films and shows and studios and everything like that. So I had sat down, met with the head of casting over at CW, and like another one of my friends who had just done the movie. He literally like a month prior, it had come out that he had signed on to be Wally West in the Flash series. So I was like, yeah, man, like my friend Keenan, he's doing this, like, you know, and they're like, oh, we love Keenan and everything like that. So we had just been talking about roles, how much I love comic books and everything like that. And literally like a week or so later, I had gotten an audition, like not through them or anything, but for another character in the, I guess, in the Arrowverse universe. And I was like, oh man, this is like perfect. This would be fun. So like my team had reached back out to them and said like, man, like we had just met you and we didn't like know if there was going to be something that we can work on together here anytime soon. But like he's literally going in for this thing. I'm saying that I'm remembering like my audition for Connor Hawke, and it's like it's so loud.
But did you know it was for Connor Hawke? Because a lot of times they'll give you sides and they'll say it's for Bob Smith or something. They'll make up a name. Like, did you know this was for Connor Hawke?
It was fake sides, but it was for like a different Green Arrow or whatever.
Okay.
Like Green
you
Arrow
was a superhero.
like
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's what I did in the scene. Like I binged Arrow, and like I came in like bought a green jacket, a green jacket with a hood, and came in like we have to protect the city. Like
I did the voice.
Oh yeah, like I went way too hard in on this thing.
Like, we can fix this in post.
I know. I feel like if I saw that audition again, I would like cringe.
That's great.
But the people, because I had just gone in to see them, like the CW wanted to see the tape and everything, so they sent the tape, and I guess it wasn't like terrible because like I made it to the next round of casting, and like I guess it was only a handful of people that they were like down between, and yeah, a couple of them were friends of mine, and they all like got other shows and stuff like that. But I ended up working out to where I just landed it, and me being a bit overzealous for the role paid off.
So now, talk about suiting up for the first time, just putting the Green Arrow suit on, because that's got to be. I mean, you're at that point. This is 2046. It's like an alternate future. But you're the Green Arrow at that point.
Yeah, and like. Luckily, they let me have a little bit of extra time in the suit just to sort of feel it out, because it's only when you, I guess, get into everything that you can fully sort of embody the character. And it's like filling out like, okay, how would he stand? Like, how would he be resting? And what was his like, I guess, default position and everything? Like, who is this person in this suit, and what does this suit mean to him? A lot of times, which it ended up like really, really irking the sound people, because they would put the mic right here. The mic would be right here. And like in the suit and playing around with it, like I felt like his default position was like here, kind of like wearing a military vest or whatever in the Army. Like they a lot of them, they'll have, whatever thing attached to them, and they'll just be resting their arms there. So I pulled a lot of influence from like military. And if I was Diggle's son, like it made sense. So that was kind of what I did every time I was in a resting position. It was like from feeling out that costume.
Talk about those initial fight scenes too, just in Legends, because that whole thing is epic, because you're thrown right into, it's not just like one-on-one. It's like this massive, it's like all the superheroes.
Yeah.
A lot. Did you get to do like a lot of stunts? Did they like, no, we'll do that?
It was like a mixed bag, and I was trying to, just because I got sort of, well, I didn't get thrown in. We spent some time working with stunt coordinators and like blocking out fight scenes for some of the bigger action pieces, but some of the smaller ones, like there was nothing sort of blocked out for them for me to do. We would go there, and in shooting it, they'd be like, okay, we need this piece, or we need to see him fighting right here. So like they would say that, and then the stunt coordinator or stunt guys would come and be like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this: punch, kick, block, move, spin, and then duck. And like the first take, like guy's supposed to do a roundhouse kick, and I duck under it. I did not duck. I got kicked in the face.
Oh no.
But like the stunt people were so good that they can like pull their kicks. So it's like I felt it on my face, but like it wasn't like I got like knocked out or anything.
It's
So
almost like they sensed you were in the wrong space and pulled off it. Wow. Oh, you got fortunate.
I mean, they're the stunt teams in the Arrowverse are just amazing. But yeah, so then I quickly realized like I need to get this right now. So like,
what kind of training did you do? Like, oh, go ahead.
I said, did not get kicked in the face again.
No, that's a pretty quick learning curve on that. What kind of training did you do? Just physical, because we see Mel like on the salmon ladder and all that. Like, were you like into all that? Or
it's funny because they shot like end of 7th season. They shot a finale where I was on the salmon ladder, and it ended up getting cut for time. I wonder if it's I don't have the like DVD box set of like season 7, but I wonder if it's like extra bonus footage. But yeah, we shot a whole bunch of stuff where we were in the salmon ladder, or where I was on the salmon ladder and everything. But for Arrow, I watched how in shape everybody was. I mean, obviously I binged that first season before I went into it. And I was like, dude, this is such a physically demanding show, and these people are in such good shape. I am not going to be the weakest link on this show. So like I trained, I looked at my girlfriend's a trainer. So she put me through a ringer getting ready for, this role and everything. But when I got to set, I worked like any day that I wasn't shooting, I would spend time with the stunt coordinators. Like if I had a fight scene, I would be like, let's do stuff. Let's like play around, let's find some things. And like, luckily they were more than willing to play, and they already do like different training sections and stuff like that whenever they have an episode to do stuff. So like they just threw me in on that as well, so I could learn. It was a lot of that, and luckily they let me play around, and they were willing to like try things. If I was like, oh, what if like Connor does this, or what if we do this little cool moment, and they're like, let's do it. I mean, it was such a creative and collaborative process working with the stunt coordinators on this show.
What did they tell you about moving into Arrow then? Because you're obviously playing multiple different versions. There's the multiverse, there's, it ends up being in Crisis. Like, were you able to keep all that stuff straight? I mean, how did you do that? What questions did you have about the character?
His thing's because like, basically, there was a different, like it was never clear what was going on in the universe to the people watching it. But this was supposed to be a Connor Hawke on a separate timeline. It was just supposed to be a different Connor Hawke. And Mark Guggenheim had an idea for how to sort of clarify that. And it was all going to like come to light in Crisis. So I was supposed to be in Crisis, and what ended up happening, the worst scheduling thing ever. I think Ruby Rose had gotten injured. So there was like some conflicts with her schedule and like going to the doctor. And the day that I was supposed to shoot my scenes for Crisis were shifted because she was injured. So I don't know, I described schedule. She was supposed to shoot early because she couldn't shoot early. They're like, okay, we got to move this scene that's later to fill this spot so we can keep shooting everything. Well, that spot, I was shooting the scene in Arrow where like I cut off Roy Harper's arm. So it was like, oh, we need you here to cut off Roy Harper's arm. And I was like, but I'm supposed to be in Crisis. And like, we just tried everything we couldn't work it out. That it was I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. It was a scene where future Oliver has this fight with, I guess, the White Canary, everything from Legends. So like in that scene, like I was initially in that, and like they had to scramble to rewrite it.
Oh.
I know, it hurt my heart.
With the Canaries, with the Green Arrow and the Canaries, though, that was supposed to be a spinoff show that you were going to be into, and that was another sort of like, we know what happened with that COVID hit, and it just it didn't get picked up. It was a great episode. It was a classic episode. But is there any chance of that maybe coming back, or that sort of timeline, like us seeing that again? Because in the Arrowverse, anything's possible. Have they talked about that at all? Like bringing your character back?
Anything is possible. And I'm always like talking to Mark and everything. I know it would be fun to do. And I know that they just had Cat in this last, and I guess the Flash is
the Armageddon.
Yeah.
The Armageddon.
Well, I mean, I'm here at the network. So I'm more than willing to do something else.
You just have to pop next door. That's all. Just
I know, right? Like you already have my like information. You got my number. But no, I would love to revisit the universe, especially as Connor, and do something cool. So it's just about, I don't know, what Mark wants to do, what Berlanti wants to do, and like, I don't know, they see a space for it in the new universe that they have.
Best thing about the character.
Best thing about Connor?
Connor. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like he always had an integrity to him. It's funny. I don't know where they were going to go in the new timeline, because that seemed like it was going to be fun to play. But like to have somebody who is like extremely earnest and well-intentioned and like really wanted to pick up the mantle of where his father left off, or I guess where the original Team Arrow left off. And I don't know, just related to it so much.
How do we find you on social media? You talked about an EP coming up. We know 4400. How do we find you on social media? Where are you at?
My handles across all social media platforms are at Joseph D. Jones. And yeah, I'm gearing up to drop this album probably top of the year, but it'll still be during, I guess, when we pick up for the second half of this first season for the 4400.
4400.
Yeah. Dang it. See, I told you.
I will help you on that. Joseph, continued success on the show. We can't wait to see what's going on, and I hope to see you back in the Arrowverse at some point here pretty soon. So, and hope maybe Batwing on the big screen. Let's do that. Just no nipples. No nipples on the Batsuit. No nipples.
No nipples on the back suit. Let's keep putting it out there that Batwing is going to happen.
Thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, my man. I really appreciate it.